everywhere else, but you know,
Maple
I'm
wood.
flexible.
Yeah, these roundabouts are almost too narrow.
They're probably the smallest ones I have ever seen in the world. So,
Well, one argument
and I've been a lot of places.
because a lot of them are like, 4 lanes. The idea of going to 1 or 2 lanes was to get people used to it first.
Yeah.
So I can understand why it would only be 1 lane, because you watch some of these
Yeah.
driving Andretti's drive through the street,
Yeah.
and particularly this month, they still think it's July.
Yeah.
So on one hand,
Yeah.
you're trying to educate people to use common sense.
Yeah, that's true.
So before we go widen it, I would say just leave it as is until,
Yeah. Well, certainly that one there in Gladstone has had a few slippery spots in it. And I noticed a couple of people almost on their way into the parking lot for the Monk Funeral Home rather than going down the street they really wanted to go to.
Well, ones in Mexico and Europe, don't they put one of the emperors on a horse on a pedestal in the center?
Well, you can still see it.
I mean, we could put Ronald Reagan up there or something.
Well, he wrote
In your dreams, in your dreams.
Okay, now I have a follow-up question for
Okay.
Mr. All. When the city does these street restorations, when we have a strictly residential street that carries just neighborhood cars, as opposed to somebody that's living on a street, it's still residential, it's all houses, but is a thoroughfare that carries a lot of traffic. So where the strictly residential side little street might last for 20 years, and the other street that's carrying all the traffic lasts 10 years, does the city offset the cost to the homeowner that happens to get stuck on a street that carries a high volume of traffic, as opposed to the person whose street only has to have,
The residents pay the same whether you live on a thoroughfare or on a cul-de-sac with minimal traffic. You pay the same, and it's a one-time charge once every 35 years. The street only lasts 20, requires some maintenance. The city, that's a city cost. The thoroughfares, we typically have a different funding source to pay for that maintenance. But a resident that lives on a thoroughfare versus a resident on a lesser traveled street, it pays the same.
But then why do I hear that some people that have a higher assessment for their street improvement, granted if they're both total reconstructions, not a mill and overlay, why shouldn't this cost per front footage be exactly the same from neighborhood A to neighborhood B? Why is there a difference then?
They are. If you have the same type of home from one resident to the next, the only adjustment is the inflationary increase from one year to the next.
So they should be
identical. Yep. What the Galbraiths paid back in, I don't know, what year was your street?
6 years ago.
6 years ago, is the same rate, only adjusted by an inflationary expense today for a single family resident. If we were to do John's house down in Maryland, if we were to do that, he would pay the same rate, just adjusted for the inflation over the years.
And if there's other work, sewer work or something, that's not an additional charge? That's
Sewer, because it's a user fee, we have funds available to replace the sewer. You only pay for sewer once.
okay.
Mr. Rector?
If you know, Chuck, if you knew that there was gonna be big heavy trucks on that road, wouldn't they wanna build that road better than the road
And we
that?
Yeah.
What- what-
Like Maryland Avenue is built to what's called a 10-ton design, where a lot of the Galbraith Street is to what's called a 7-ton design. So, just because of the width. And it's again to try to get them to last 35 to 40 years.
Well, my road is really good, so I don't think it needs anything until I'm
And
dead.
I don't believe it's on the list for the
Whatever
next 5
happened to
years.
that
What do you
study
say,
about
next year?
cement on the road?
Pardon me?
Back when Diana's road was going, they brought up about cement.
Correct.
It would be cheaper than blacktop.
It can be in a long run, if you look at it in a 50-year cycle, but unfortunately, what happens is, like over here on Bush or somewhere near Prosperity, a water main breaks. Then all of a sudden, you gotta dig up concrete instead of bitumen, and you're putting in an entirely pad. Plus, residential streets, you do concrete, you know, you gotta shut them down for 6 to 7 days before someone can access it because your concrete needs to be set up. Where you put down bituminous, you can drive on it that afternoon. So that's the problem with residential streets, and it's a debate back and forth. Concrete's getting pretty expensive right now, so.
I have one quick question. Can a street be legally closed without a public hearing?
Hey.
I won't let it go.
I know you won't, so, and I'm not gonna answer, so.
You're not gonna answer?
No, we've been through that before.
Well, we never had a public hearing on closing
I
it.
understand.
Huh?
I understand.
Where can I go? Will Mr. Cantu give me a legal ruling on that?
I don't think so.
Hmm?
I think you got the answer from the council, and you may not like the answer, but I think the council members gave you an answer.
You know,
I don't think they legally closed it.
Okay.
I came up to that street the
Now,
other
I
day.
have one question when you're talking about streets and the size, the design. How many tons is a garbage truck generally, an average one?
Full garbage truck.
Okay, yeah, let's say full.
30,000?
Yeah, probably.
Won't give me
20,
an
about 24,000 pounds, but that's a total gross vehicle weight. Remember, you got, some of them have multiple axles.
So that's
it's axle
12 tons?
limits, yeah,
So that's 12 tons?
right, but you have 2 different axles, so that's only 6 per axle.
Okay. So how does that equate to a road constructed to be 7 ton?
Okay, but that's different. The 7-ton talks about a 20-year life of the road. We typically design it for that, and it's a number of axle repetitions, where one garbage truck is about like 1,400 to 1,500 cars does the same damage. So you are right. Garbage trucks and school buses are the 2 that do the most damage to our residential streets. And I know where you're going. with
So
that.
how heavy is a full school bus? Do we know?
Much less than that, typically probably 5 ton per axle.
Depends if they're going to.
Depends
school
on how
or
big the
coming
kids
from-
are.
The larger buses might be as up to 5 ton per axle, maybe less, 4 or 5.
Okay. And they go every day?
They do. School buses do.
It's a garbage.
Remember, we have 6 to 7 garbage trucks on our residential streets. They're the ones doing the most damage to our roads.
You know, I have to say this, we have 4 that go through our neighborhood. And I'm grateful that I can pick the one I want that accommodates
Right?
my finances. And there is one that constantly goes up and down the street. And I had called them this summer, and I got some cock and bull story about what I had to get from here to get. I says, if you plan your map correctly, this guy is only going to have to come down the street once, not 3-4 times. So,
Well, the thing is,
So it's a routing problem.
St. Paul used to have, the city ran their own garbage service. And everybody had garbage service via the city. What their rationale for getting rid of that meant there was only one garbage truck that went down. Now, I know for a fact, I saw a study done by North St. Paul. North St. Paul looked at having the city do their own garbage pickup. And they looked at it from the perspective of they could maintain the equipment, they'd have new equipment, and they wouldn't have all this hydraulic fluid leaking where these trucks would stop. And that their numbers showed it to be a big moneymaker for the city. Where they ran up against was the private haulers being opposed to them taking that on. But, you know, I would rather entertain the discussion of something like that than having the city get into renting of billboard spaces and cell tower spaces, that if in fact it can be substantiated, not only on paper, but from other cities that have done this, that there's a real cost benefit to streets and to, actual revenue generation and eliminating all. I mean, if we could
Well,
eliminate.
that is definitely competing with the market, though.
Oh, it is competing with it. But the other thing is, it could still be a city-operated, with a vendor bidding to do the operation, where the city maybe doesn't actually have the employees driving the trucks. But, you know, it was another thing. And North St. Paul is a smaller city, what the heck is it? But,
Well, maybe that's why it's more of a money making opportunity, because North St. Paul, the topography is different. You basically have older homes, they're smaller plots, therefore, per area, per capita, you can get more bang, more traction in the trucks. Like here in Maplewood, I mean, it's like, you got the smaller plots, homes in the north part, but you got the bigger lots down in the south.
oh, yeah, but I mean, it's,
And North St. Paul can take that great care of their streets.
well, they have a different rationale, that deteriorated streets are as efficient as speed bumps, you know? If there's a lot of potholes, it slows people down, and you'll hear a lot of people say they want that. You know, it'll keep a lot of traffic off their street.
Don't take away our time.
Well,
No,
that may
yeah.
not actually be true, because up until 2000, Hazelwood was a great street. You had more potholes per square foot than you would find in a junkyard, and then they redid the street. The street had to be redone, they put the sidewalk in and whatnot. And we really don't have that much more traffic now, 10 years later, than when the street was basically falling apart. So,
They
that-
just drive faster.
well, we got more stop signs and pork chops and put stuff in the way.
North St. Paul does have good.
But at the same time, you gotta remember, North St. Paul is a compact city. Like Robert says, you know, the northern part of Maplewood has smaller plotted houses, you know, the southern part of the city, you have bigger plotted houses. But we're also laid out more like the state of Idaho, whereas North St. Paul is laid out basically in a grid system. So it may work in North St. Paul, but you may have a little more problems here in Maplewood, so you gotta look at that. I mean, it's worth looking at, you know, setting up like an industrial commission where, you know, we're gonna have these government-sponsored enterprises where the city maybe owns the equipment and they contract the stuff out to various vendors and they run the equipment so we can maintain the equipment.
Because I don't know, is there anything that the city can do to control garbage truck maintenance? In other words, if they've got leaky hydraulic systems and they stop in the same place every week and they put another little shot of hydraulic fluid on that asphalt, that becomes a big problem.
So you're gonna hire someone, a city inspector, go up there and basically check garbage trucks all the time.
Yeah, that's
what
gonna
you're talking
happen.
about. So-
State Patrol does that.
Well, this sounds like a really
State
good
Patrol does
discussion to bring on into the new year with the new council, so keep all your thoughts in mind. Maybe even attend the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission meeting where they actually been talking a little bit about this subject, because they also have an opportunity during their meetings where citizens can get up and speak to them as to what's on your mind. So anyway, go ahead.
One last thing, where does the money go when you have a policeman in your area or a state patrolman gives you a ticket? Especially, where does that money go? Back into?
No, if you get a $120 citation for speeding, the city gets less than 20% of that.
Oh, really?
And most of it goes to pay for the courts.
I've called our city policeman and I've called the state patrol. There's a big sign on coming off of Highway 61 off of 36 and 61 says you cannot cross over to County Road B.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm on that a lot, and I have to tell you how many times I am cut off. One time we had an old man blocking traffic back beyond. I thought there was they say, oh, we're there all the time. I'm sorry, I do not see a patrol car there at all. No enforcement.
Oh gee, thanks, Chuck. You don't think that?
I was just gonna say, Tamala put up a study one time where he said, you know, like a $120 ticket, the city got $10 out of it.
Yeah, it's
Because
Well,
most
they could make a
like,
lot of money on that.
because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
courts,
Yep.
because I know like the law library got like maybe $20 out of it, the courts, various little
most
courts got most of it.
goes to the courts.
So has the city looked at issuing, like
Administrative fines,
yes,
it's being discussed.
that, and getting, be expanded